Welcome, affiliated listeners, to another special spooky episode of the Affiliated Podcast. But I will tell you today, we are not going to be talking about spooky things unless you find making money easier than all the other people out there scary and spooky, or talking to top media buyers is something that's not good. But today we're going to be talking about something that I think everyone should know, which is oftentimes, and a lot of people out there, they know the tier one networks. They know Facebook, they know YouTube, they know Google, they know even TikTok per se. But oftentimes what happens, and especially right now, a lot of people know that. A lot of money is being spent there, and it's challenging. This is a mature tier one network, and that just makes advertising so hard. But it doesn't always have to be. There's lots of networks and areas out there. There was a time that Facebook was the easiest thing to advertise on because no one was doing it, right? So that is constantly occurring in the market. And if you know how to look at it, you know how to find that, you could find great opportunities. And fortunately today, not only are we joined by Thomas, the amazing co-host, who has a delightful tie on today that says Happy Halloween. It doesn't say matching, but it does say Happy Halloween. But the person that we're going to be talking to today is a fantastic media buyer. He's had one of the best companies, not only fast rising, but best places to work. I think it was by Inc. or Forbes for years now. But we have Drew Kossoff. Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So yeah, really excited to talk to you today. And just one other thing, Drew, you've probably been involved in well over, almost probably close to $1 billion in spend, but several hundreds of millions of dollars over your lifetime of media buying, right?
$1 billion plus,
Billion plus.
seven times on the Inc. 5000, 7 years in a row, fastest growing company. So yeah, we've had a lot of success. But I'm also a big believer in conscious capitalism. So in addition to making money, I like to give back, and every month we give a percentage of our profits to meaningful charities. It's really important to us too.
Oh, cool. How do you pick your charities?
Awesome.
We usually have an anchor charity every year, and then we also every month, depending on what's going on in the world, we support different charities because there's just so many amazing charities. So, if there's a hurricane, we're giving hurricane relief. If there's a school shooting, we're giving to mental health. If there's you name it, there's something, a good cause to support.
Yeah. There's never a short supply of people to help, right? So what do you have for this month, by the way? We'll get into the other really exciting stuff, but most importantly, I will say this is good stuff. Like, what a cool thing to know that you're giving back. But what's the charity for this month?
I haven't decided yet. So for next month, I'm still deciding because I actually take suggestions. So if you got any charities that are meaningful to you, I would love to take a look at them.
I will just say, I think it's a local charity, and I can't remember the name. I'll send you, but they specifically help. It's Advocate Associates, I think, of Idaho, but they specifically help children that are not able to be represented in legal situations.
Oh, wow.
So kids that are going through, foster care, their parents, they get, or sometimes they're orphans, right? And they're in situations without anyone to help them. So not only they provide legal support, but emotional support for kids in that area. So I've always been a big fan of that charity. I'm going to get all emotional as I talk about it.
Nice.
It's just unfair for kids to be in that situation alone.
Yeah.
So
Similarly, one of the charities we've been supporting recently is one called One Simple Wish, and they help foster kids. And there's a woman on my team who that charity is really important to her, and she suggested it. And you can give them all kinds of different donations. But you can see each kid and what they need. And so what I've been doing is buying laptops for foster kids, and they tell you their whole story. Like, this kid, has been bullied in school and can't go to school, so they need a laptop to go to school from home. Or this kid is, they're going to college. They're the first kid in their family to go to college, and they need or not their family, whatever, they're in their foster family, and they need a laptop to succeed in college. Or so. Computers have been so valuable in my life. I can't imagine not having a computer and not, needing that to be successful in life. So I'm trying to support kids who have maybe had a hard start in their lives and help them get ahead. So yeah.
That is awesome. Love that. That's a great charity for sure. So, well, man, what a great way to start off with some warm fuzzies. I just feel really good about that. So, let's actually jump into the big piece too that I think is really exciting. As we talked about before, Thomas and I have both heard a lot of media buyers, and a lot of frustration around tier one networks, just the normal stuff, and where you've had tons of experience and they're still buying ads in those areas. I think one of the unique things that you've always been able to do, Drew, and I've always seen you talk on multiple stages, is find the pockets that other people aren't addressing. You're willing to test and try new things, and you're always on kind of the cusp of kind of this like the best ROI or places are in this. So before we go into some ones specifically that you're seeing that people should be focusing on going into 2025 or even in the start of Q4, what I'd like to do is just kind of understand, like, why has that been your process, and why do you go after those types of opportunities?
I mean, the truth is, and of course, you need to be on the tier one networks. It's not like you shouldn't advertise
Yeah.
there. But Google and Facebook account for 47% of all digital ad spend. So, they have huge volume and they're great while they're great, but they're also, that's until they're not. And I can tell you so many horror stories of my own, from clients, from friends who were, I spoke with a client recently who is, or prospect who was spending 500 grand a month on Facebook last year, and now they're spending zero, and they're completely reliant on affiliates because things, changed in their market or for their business. I don't even know all the details of why, but it's a very common story. So, many years ago, this happened to a client that they weren't a client yet, but they had been 100% in on Google, and they got banned for some reason. They were in the health space. Their claims were too outrageous or whatever. And so we then took them to email and said, listen, in the email world, you're dealing with individual publishers. They're a lot more lenient. They're not as strict as Google. And we were able to sort of rescue the company because they lost all their advertising. And that became sort of a trend where I was always looking for alternative strategies to support, hey, you should absolutely be on the tier ones. But it's risky to be over reliant on them. And so to hedge your risk and sort of future proof your business, it's good to have more balls in the air, so that if one does go down, you still have, you're not out of business. And so that sort of became the impetus for the strategy. I think it wasn't really necessarily intentional, but today, we're just always looking for, additional new underpriced attention.
No, I love that. I think it's such a good story too, because I think a lot of people don't think about how what those algorithm changes or a policy change could just stop your entire acquisition. So, and Thomas, is that something you've seen before? Do you have any examples where you've seen people be overly reliant on one traffic source and
I
make
think
it
it's
look like a
very
business?
common in a lot of businesses, right? Because we're so good at playing offense, and when something's working, you double down on what's working. That you don't really think about the defense of what's the worst case scenario here. Yeah, if Facebook ad account gets shut down, if YouTube gets shut down, right? Whatever that is. I mean, it happened. I used to work in SEO, and it would happen constantly with algorithm changes. And like, oh yeah, all our stuff is from search, and then Penguin rolled out, and now, oh my gosh, my business just folded because we don't rank anymore, kind of thing. So if you're over reliant on one, it's hard to it's hard, right? Because I'm curious on your take on this, Drew, because I always struggle to kind of coach clients through this. When something's working, you do want to keep doubling down on, the 20%
100%.
that drives the 80% and all that. But how do you start to layer in additional without taking away focus? To me, it seems like a process operations kind of problem and team
Yeah, I mean,
almost, but yeah.
the two things we preach are sort of scale and diversification. So absolutely double down on what's working, because it may work for 6 months, may work for a year, may work for 10 years, but what's working, you should 100% double down on. But if that's all you're doing, if something goes wrong, you've got that concentration risk. And so, it's almost like an insurance policy, or a hedge fund. You're just layering it. And we use, I loosely, call it the 90-10 rule, where it's like you should be spending 90% of your money on what's working, but you should always be, putting aside 10% to test new things. And that's how you find the new channels, the new opportunities. If you're not testing, then you're, that risk just increases. So we're always testing, and that's how we discovered new networks that we could spend $1 million a month on that no one ever heard of before. If we hadn't been experimenting, we never would have found them.
It's
Right. So
awesome.
you
Well,
really raise your floor that way. Yeah.
no, so and that transitions kind of perfectly, because I think one of the questions I have is, like, how do you find the spots that no one else is looking at? So where I can understand you have this test budget, you're like, now I want to go and try some places. How have you and your team been able to, like I said, go to the places where no one's looking, and find these opportunities?
A combination of ways. I mean, we do a lot of email advertising as well. So in the email world, you're dealing with, we have, I think, relationships with 400 different publishers. So you're always looking for new publishers and hearing things or seeing things. And so over time, you're just sort of through the grapevine or through your network or through your relationships, are discovering new partnerships, new people. I go to conferences, I meet people. So in some ways, it's just sort of organic like that. And then also there's great competitive intelligence tools that we absolutely, I don't even start a campaign without looking at where, the company's advertising or where all their competitors are advertising. And you can, basically these days, nothing's a secret. You can, and so it's like, wow, oh my God, their competitor is spending, $3 million a month on YouTube, and they're not even on YouTube. There's, that's, success leaves clues, maybe that's an opportunity that you should explore. So a lot of times it's the data that, informs the, like, hey, maybe we should test that because it looks like some people are having success there. And sometimes it's just shot in the dark. Hey, that sounds interesting. A lot of our clients are just, the big ones. They're advertising everywhere. They have multiple agencies and in-house teams. And so it's hard to find new things. They're always willing to test something new. And so sometimes we're both, completely just taking a shot in the dark. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But, I believe you should try to fail as fast and as quickly as you can, as cheaply as you can. And move on. But then when you find the winners, that's where you, like you said, you double down. I kind of learned this from one of my mentors and former business partner, a guy named Evan Pagan, who's the founder of Double Your Dating and a bunch of other things. And he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. And I remember early on when I was buying media for him in the early 2000s, I was a little gun shy. I didn't want to make mistakes. I didn't want to burn money. And he basically said, at the time that, this was a lot of, not a lot of money, but this was a reasonable test budget. He said, I'm comfortable with you. I trust you. You can spend $2,000 on anything you want. If it fails, no problem. I'm willing to spend $2,000 to learn something. And as long as you learn from your mistakes, and what's not working, and you keep, doubling down on what is, feel free to test and not be afraid to make mistakes. And that freedom, really unleashed me to try lots of new things and not be like, oh, can only try these 3 things that I know are going to work. And, and so that's, I think that sort of philosophy is still, in my mind. I don't want to, profit from someone's losses or burn people's money, but you have to spend some money to try new things.
Gosh, what's the inflation adjusted number now? Is it 5K, 10K? Yeah.
Honestly, depending on the channel, typically, especially with with ad networks, we typically need $5 to 10 grand. We recommend, in many cases it's 5 is enough, but sometimes 10 to really, determine whether it's scalable and it's going to work. Because there's a lot of fat to cut out and optimization to do in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you got to go through learning mode. And depending on the offer, the higher the CPA, the more conversions you need to get the data to confirm what's working, right? If it's a lead gen campaign and it's $2 a lead, you get a lot of data very quickly. If it's $150 CPA, then you need more, you need to spend more to figure things out.
Mm-hmm. No, that's I love the line there is like, I'm willing to spend X to learn, right? I think that's the real big key there. I think a lot of people think of it's losses or something, but I just love that idea that when you're doing media buying, initially you're always spending for data, you're spending for information. And that's so valuable, and you should never be afraid. Like, if you make money while you get information, that's just a cherry on top of the cake, right? But it's kind of like giving, I always joke, it's like, I think it should be like giving money to, that brother or brother-in-law that you're like, they're never paying me back. So, it's going to go out there. You're getting goodwill from it, but put that out there with no expectation of returning any of those dollars. If anything comes back, your expectation's nothing but surprise and joy. So, but I really like that. Just, you're paying for education. You're paying for data.
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much of media buying success is mental. And so another thing that Evan, we used to do back in the day, which was really interesting, and many of our biggest clients do, is that he figured out that lifetime value was what mattered, not day one revenue. And a lot of people are like, I got to break even or be profitable on day one. And so that limits your scalability. Whereas if you had the ability or the business model, to invest in media, knowing that you'll recoup it, later, I think our goal was to, for him, and as well as the Agora companies and a bunch of others, like, we could lose anywhere from 25% to 75% of the ad spend on the front end, depending on the business. And we had there was enough products and enough data to show that, within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever the model was, we'd make the money back, and within 6 months we're way in the black. In a year, it's all gravy. And so I would talk to people in competitors and be like, oh yeah, I tried. Like, I remember someone telling me, I tried Google and it didn't work. And I was like, you tried Google and it didn't work? What do you mean? And he's like, well, I broke even, or I spent $10,000 and I made $10,000. It didn't work. And I was thinking we would be going to
Have
town
free customers. Yeah.
if we spent 10,000 and made
Yeah.
10,000, and so it's just a different mindset.
Mhm.
I would spend 10,000 and make 5,000 and be happy for that at the time for that competitive offer that we were running. And so that's how we outspent all the competition and grew a big company when the others
That's
were
awesome.
just running for the hills after a break even or a loss.
Yeah, well, what a great, like I said, it's a mindset, right? It's that perspective of what you're doing and what the goal is. And I think it's always good. And I think for all the listeners out there who's listening to this, it's a great time. If you're buying media right now, if you're an offer owner, if there's those limiting beliefs that tell you that this is what success and failure is, take a moment, reflect, and ask yourself why. Why is that failure? Why is that success? There might be an opportunity to really redefine and open up that mindset
Yeah,
to a
but
totally different
I
idea.
just realized though, because I know who your audience is that a lot of your audience is affiliates and not just offer owners. And I've been on both sides of that table. So obviously affiliates need to be profitable with media buying
Yeah, yeah.
to make it work. Owner, when we can get into first party data and the whole, later in the conversation, but offer owners and not, I have plenty of clients that are super profitable on day one. So, there's companies that across the board, some need to be super profitable. Some are most are happy with a break even, and some can go negative. And, those are the big guys who have the, the ability to spend millions of dollars and not make it all back, every month. Not
Yeah.
everyone can do that early on, but that's what you're competing against. If you're seeing things aren't working, competition is one of the reasons. And, it's not unlimited, ad space. So you're competing with all the other advertisers, and some of them may have smarter business models than you, or more, more cash in the bank, or, so that's another reason why if you go to, second tier or smaller networks or other channels, there's less competition, there's underpriced attention, other people aren't focused on it. And maybe it's easier for a smaller advertiser to succeed there.
Yeah. Well, again, Drew, you just keep setting up these beautiful transitions. It's like you've done this before. So I think that transitions right perfectly into what are the networks? What are the places? Where should people be focusing on that you've seen, that you've been testing out lately, that got you really excited for going like right now and into next year?
Yeah. Well, I should say, like, if you're struggling with media, it's not your fault. Things are challenging right now. It's more difficult than it's ever been for everybody, even the experts. There's a lot of headwinds going on. There's, the economy, is definitely not in great shape. The consumer debt crisis is real, 18 trillion and growing. Delinquencies are skyrocketing. Like there's a challenge out there. And what does that mean? It means people aren't, buying like they used to. They're not pulling out their credit cards as easily. And the media costs have gone up. So you got rising prices, a bad economy, competition. A lot more advertisers have moved from, especially the big ones, the Fortune 500 kind of advertisers have moved in recent years, more of their budgets online as opposed to TV and radio and other places. So you're competing with bigger advertisers. The privacy issues with Apple and everything and iOS changes have made it more difficult to target the right people. Compliance is gotten more difficult with a lot of the networks. There's sort of the black boxes where you don't really have control of what's happening with the media. Like it's great if it's working, but if it's not, you don't really, you don't know what's you don't have as much ability to optimize in some cases. So, all these headwinds are making it difficult. So I say that just ahead of this is like, no channel is like a guarantee. And you should be advertising on Google and Facebook. In no way, we run campaigns on those networks and love them, and they're super scalable. But like I said, as a de-risking strategy, there's other great channels that do really well. Two of them, I know we chatted about this a little before we got on the call, but two of the ones that we're really bullish on right now are Taboola and Newsbreak. And why is that? Taboola, everyone's heard of it. Maybe you've tried it before in the past. It's been around for a long time. I was one of the early advertisers on the network and spending a lot of money with them a decade ago. And then kind of things seemed to get more difficult, with native, and it wasn't as easy as it used to be. But Taboola recently did a deal this year with Yahoo. And it's a 30-year deal. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a 30-year deal. A 30-year deal to basically supply all the ads for all the Yahoo traffic, Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Email, et cetera. And it's not only a huge amount. We used to advertise directly with Yahoo, so now basically all that traffic and all those targeting features are part of Taboola, and it is basically reinvigorated the channel, and we're seeing great success, great scale on Taboola. So fan of Taboola. We're a preferred Taboola agency, so I just want to be transparent. We have a great relationship with them as well. And similarly, we have that same relationship with Newsbreak. Newsbreak is one of the underpriced attention up and comers. It's not, you can do the volume you do on Facebook on Newsbreak, not, no, but we're seeing great conversions, great quality traffic. You can absolutely spend 6 figures a month, with the right offer. And they're really easy to work with. They're great people. I know them, hung out with them personally, really like their team. And it's basically a news app. So it's local news. And what's cool about how they've sort of cornered this market is, you can use this app and basically put in your zip code, and then you just see news all day long, every day that's relevant to you, to your city, to your town, not just, national news. And their advertising platform works great. And what else can I tell you about them? So they weren't even on our radar 2 years ago. And how we found them, one of our big clients, maybe this could transition to more of the conversation here. We have a very collaborative relationship with a lot of our clients, and many of them have multiple agencies, in-house teams, and we all share information. Hey, they're like, hey, we're having some success on Newsbreak. You might want to try it for some of your other clients. Or we'll often be like, oh, this ad is working. They'll be like, oh, great, we'll go try it on some of our other channels that we're doing in-house, or we'll give it to our other agency. Or it's like it's just everybody shares information and everybody wins. And it's depending on the size of your company, like not everybody can have multiple agencies, but in a lot of cases, divide and conquer is our philosophy. Is like, you can't, even us with hundreds of millions of dollars of media spend in 21 years of doing this. I can't be an expert at every channel. I'm not going to win every time. So you have, everyone has their strengths. Everyone has the networks that they really know. And that's why it's smart. You'd hire a brain surgeon for brain surgery and a heart surgeon for heart surgery and a dermatologist for dermatology. It's like, there's lots of experts out there, hire multiple experts and go to the ones that can help you, ultimately get the scale and the diversification you need.
Yeah. And we'll definitely go into that more for sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Thomas.
I'm glad you brought those up. Right, Taboola represents quite a bit of traffic on ClickBank to ClickBank offers, but it's from a relatively small group of affiliates. Mm-hmm. And it always feels underserved of like who could actually be tapping into that network, especially with the Yahoo that you mentioned. And sometimes people sleep on Yahoo. They're like, wait, Yahoo, that's still around. And you don't realize they have Engadget and TechRadar, like all these huge publishers out there that they actually own. So you get a ton of volume there.
It also depends on what kind of offers you're running. So like we run a lot of what we call health and wealth offers. So it's financial and it's, health and nutrition kind of stuff, which appeals to baby boomers and sort of older audiences that have money and, and care about their retirements and care about their health and their anti-aging and stuff like that. And so Yahoo is one of the older platforms. People who have Yahoo email addresses are, got them a long time ago. They're probably, a new person would be getting a Gmail.
It should be called the boomer domain, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got, offers that do well with boomers, that traffic's great. If you've got some, thing that's for 18-year-olds, it's probably better for TikTok or, whatever. So channels, no channel is great for all offers. It's, we have different things that we do for different clients, depending on what they're promoting, who their target audience is. And
I was stoked to have you mentioned Newsbreak, because both Taboola and Newsbreak are partners of ours. So if you go to clickbank.com/partners, you can find out how we work with them. And if you're interested in learning more about running traffic on them, they'd love to chat with you if you're an affiliate listening to this. Again, because when we came across Newsbreak, it was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I think they're relatively early kind of in their growth, but they've been growing very quickly for their user base and their app downloads. And then the way you can target on there is really compelling.
Yeah, I think they have 40 million subscribers on their newsletter. So they're not they're not tiny, Are they as big as Google and Facebook? No, but they're growing and they've got a great app and great platform. And like I said, we're seeing success for a lot of clients on the platform. So I'm
curious, like we have a lot of people that run traffic on, say, Facebook or YouTube, and kind of with either a picture or more likely a video ad at this point that they're kind of running. Do you have any, like, I guess, nuggets of wisdom for people like that who might be running some decent scale, let's say anywhere from 5 to multiple 6 figures a day, looking at more native type traffic like Taboola or Newsbreak, and like how that's different and what they should be thinking about?
Yeah, there? I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because things don't always translate from one platform to another. So just because you're having success on Facebook or YouTube doesn't mean you can take the exact same creative or the exact same lander and make it work on another network. on Taboola and some of the native platforms, we typically see people either running VSLs or advertorials, depending on the network. Some require advertorials or some kind of content ahead of the money page. So, if you've got heavy video that's working really well, and then you're just going to sort of an e-com kind of shopping cart landing page from YouTube or Facebook, that's not necessarily going to work. If you're just running a static ad on native, it's probably better to go to VSL if you've got a compelling story to tell, or a celebrity spokesperson or whatever. But it's interesting. Like we do a lot of stuff in health, like I mentioned, like supplements. We recently tested a supplement offer for actually 2 new clients that were both supplement companies. One of them was having a lot of success on Facebook and Google. That's the only places they work. Like this typical story. They said, yeah, well, we'd like to, to try some new things. But, their current iteration was, they have a celebrity spokesperson who's on video on Facebook, which is very compelling. By the time you've seen that celebrity person who like, and trust, and you click over to the offer, you don't need a lot of selling, right? And so that's working. They were spending as much as $40,000 a day, I think, on Facebook. Really, doing big volume, but they wanted to, they wanted to test the existing funnel on Taboola, Newsbreak, and things, and it was, we just, sometimes those things work, but in this case, it just didn't. It didn't translate. It just, we really actually surprised, to be honest. Like it just did not look good at all. But then I had another client, similar, also a supplement company, who had a VSL, and it was written by a world-class copywriter. And we just launched them, I think, a week ago, and same channels, Taboola, Newsbreak, whatever. And day one, getting conversions and profitable before even optimization, like working out of the gates.
Oh, wow.
So both are successful offers that are working on other channels, but it can be hit or miss. You have to figure out, and that's where the optimization and tweaking. Like I wouldn't keep spending money if it's just bombing out of the gates. We put it on pause. So what's the first company I mentioned doing now? They're working on a VSL, and so a month from now, we'll try it again and see if we can make it work with a different format. So that's part of the tweaking and optimization, and it's tricky. Like, there's no one way to do things. Like you have to do some testing, and sometimes one thing works and sometimes others. And that's the amazing thing with hundreds of millions of dollars of media under my belt. I still never know what's going to work until I test it. I think something's gonna be a home run, and it's not something I wasn't expecting to wins. Like it's just, that's the fun thing about media buying for me. It's kind of like a video game. You're playing, like you're a player and you're trying to win the game, and sometimes you get killed and you got to start over again, and sometimes you make it far, and like it's and it's just, you just keep playing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, one thing I want to go back on Newsbreak. So I think we've had people on with Taboola before, and I think I want to circle back on that in a bit. But with Newsbreak, what do you know that maybe is a little bit unique about that platform in terms of the creatives that you're doing, or maybe the products that you've noticed tend to work? I'm assuming, again, probably an older demo for something like that, but I'm curious kind of what you've seen different on that platform.
We focus on health and wealth, so I don't have like 20 different categories of advertisers to have experience, but we've definitely seen that the audience skews a little female, and so female health related offers tend to do very well. But we've also seen some financial offers do quite well on the platform. So yeah, I don't know. For us, if you've got a female or a supplement or a retirement financial kind of offer, I think those would be a good place to test. If you, and I would imagine like home services and other things. These are like U.S. Local.
Ted's Woodworking. Ted's Woodworking, people. This is my plug for Ted's Woodworking. I feel like once a quarter we have to mention Ted's Woodworking on a podcast episode. So.
Contractually obligated at this point. Yeah.
Yes. Ted has made us.
To answer your question, like if I was, if someone came to me and they had something I wasn't familiar with, what would I do? I'd go, to my spy tools and competitive intelligence tools and say, and unfortunately, Newsbreak is not on the tool that I'm thinking of, but maybe because they're new. But Taboola and Google and a lot of other places are. You can go and see what kind of offers are spending a lot of money on those networks, and be like, oh yeah, well, I've never tested it, but I can see your biggest competitor spending a lot of money there. Probably worth exploring that network. Or in other cases, I'm like, I don't see any. Like I had someone approach me that's got like one of those like Optima tax relief kind of offers. And they're like, we want to, do native. And I went and looked everywhere. And I'm like, I don't see any of the tax offers spending any money on native. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. They have nobody's figured it out, and it's a huge opportunity, or it just doesn't work. For whatever reason on that channel. And so, yeah, usually if there's nobody advertising, it's probably a bad sign. It's rare that it's the opposite. Like, wow, everybody's missing out and nobody knows about it.
I found some secret sauce. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's on like Taboola. It's not like that's unknown in these very obvious offers. So
yeah. And then the other
that's
thing
really
is
good advice.
compliance. That's the other thing is like a lot of times these, it's like even if you have an offer, depending on how aggressive you are with your landing pages, your advertising, if you can't get approved, then who cares how good the network is? So and then that's always a fine line to dance on as well. Is you can't be, if you're totally vanilla, it's never going to work, and if you're totally aggressive, you're going to never get approved. So how do you find that that right combination? And working with obviously this kind of is a conversation I've been posting some stuff on social media about lately. Is you may have heard in the news that like networks like Facebook are using AI to do compliance, and that's fine on the front end, and then if there's a problem and if your things get rejected, then you have the ability to go and talk to a human and like say, wait, no, this is a mistake, and here's why, and I should get approved, and most of the time you could push it through. But now I hear that they're they're moving to AI on the conflict resolution as well, so you can't even talk to a human. I like having relationships, and on the smaller, mid-tier networks, you can, have a rep, but you can talk to the management. If you're spending a lot of money like we do, you've got an insider relationship where you can push things through. You can get feedback like, hey, we wouldn't approve these ads, but we would approve those, so go that direction, instead of just throwing something up, see if it sticks and getting rejected and having no human to talk to. And, the more rejections you get, the more you damage your sort of reputation on the platform, and it gets harder to do what you want to do. So I love the fact that you can have relationships with some of these networks like Newsbreak and Taboola.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to one more, and then I want to talk about another thing you mentioned to circle back with the agencies and kind of how to win with agencies at different levels for companies. But before that, there's one other one that when we kind of talked and talked about having on the podcast that you brought up that I found super interesting, because I think it's something that we all interact with, but I don't think people ever think about it as a traffic source, which is Reddit. So you had mentioned that in your presentations when you guys had some success with. Can you just talk a little bit more about advertising on Reddit, how you're able to use that?
Yeah, actually, on that presentation, I said we're exploring it, so I don't have a ton of experience with it. But I actually wanted to tell you something interesting related to Reddit. Is we've got a client in the crypto space, a new client. We've had lots of clients in the crypto space, but it's a new client. They've got an interesting project, and they're trying to reach a specific audience of people who owned a certain crypto. Well, how do you find those people? Like, okay, you can go to websites that are about crypto, and maybe some of those people, own that crypto or we're interested in that crypto. You can go to sites, maybe there's a few sites that are very specific to that crypto, but we're just trying to figure out how do we reach those audiences. And I discovered a network that has done something very interesting where they've basically mapped, they're all like ex-Israeli intelligence guys who've mapped 900 million digital wallets and then overlaid that with Reddit and Twitter users, and they have the ability to advertise on Twitter and Reddit to people and know exactly what they have in their wallet. So if you wanted to reach someone who had Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever, wow, you can advertise on Reddit, for your crypto offer that's related to whatever a particular coin or project or similar one that you thought would be aligned with what you're focused on. And so I was like, we have not tested it yet, but we're busy negotiating right now to get on this platform and leverage this data and do this kind of advertising. So there's always new things, there's new ways, and I think digital wallets are I think right now there's not everyone has a digital wallet or is using it, but in the future it's going to be sort of like you're going to know a lot about people by what's in their digital wallets, right? So if you're a Taylor Swift fan or you own a certain crypto or you're like all that stuff's on the blockchain and you'll be able to see it. And that might become the new way of targeting with advertising. Apple wants to block iOS and stop your, create privacy, but you can tell a lot about people by what they own, not just where they visit. So I think things like this could be very interesting. And again, 90-10 rule, I want to try it. I want to test it. If it doesn't work, great, we'll move on to something else. But if it does, there's 100 other things that I could use that data for and clients that I could bring on to do that kind of advertising. So super interesting.
Are you doing anything on the streaming platforms like the Hulu or Peacock or the different kind of where you're just doing this?
Not recently. Not recently. Again, there's so many places to advertise. It's hard to do
Yeah.
everything. Um, we tried some of that like years and years and years ago, and with sort of mediocre success. Like it wasn't a failure. It wasn't hugely scalable. So we didn't continue. But yeah, I think there's opportunities on those platforms as well.
I
Yeah, I've
imagine
seen
the
some clients show
advertising
up
on
on
that has to
there.
feel
Yeah.
different. Oh
Say
yeah,
again?
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, some different supplement brands, Patriot brands. Yeah, there's been a few popping up where
Say
it's
that
like,
again. Like
oh,
you said you're having success there. You said.
I'm seeing them advertised there. Some of the
Oh,
different people
gotcha.
in the direct response space. I don't know. I can't speak to their ROI on it, but I'm always curious. Like, okay, someone's trying this and getting some traction, or I want to keep seeing their
Yeah,
ads.
and
But
you also wonder, like, are they actually advertising directly on the platform, or is it something programmatic that's just, that's
true. Yeah.
filling the, but so, where are they really buying, it's hard to know sometimes.
Well, and even as you talk with Taboola and the Amazon deal, because Amazon has connected TV DSPs as well, so that could be something where even you're serving up in Taboola possibly with certain ad types might get you on connected TV. Who knows? I
Yeah,
have no idea. I'm just speaking
we've
out
done
my
some
butt, but
experimenting
maybe.
with connected TV as well, and it's interesting. The stuff that we did was more, you're running TV ads basically, but those people watching this TV, maybe they have a Roku or whatever they've got at home. They know that you've also got a cell phone and a laptop in your home, and you're the same person. And so maybe
Mhm.
they see the TV ad, but then they start retargeting you. You retarget them with the ads on their devices, and we saw like not great conversions off the TV portion of it, but great conversions on the retargeting. We did something in the pet insurance space that was quite successful, a couple of years ago with that kind of thing. So yeah, always testing, always experimenting, but at the same time, you got to be careful not to get too scattered. Like I said, you can only be an expert at so many things. So, sometimes we're guided by our clients saying, "Hey, we want to try something. Okay, we'll go try it." And it's cool. We can learn on their dime, but we also have to be careful not to try to do everything.
Yeah. No, real fast, just going back on, if you don't mind me asking, would you be willing to share the name of that network that was doing the, where they're taking the digital wallets and mapping that with Twitter and Reddit users?
Yes, I would. It's called addressable.io. So it's a platform, it's not like an ad network. So it's basically overlays. Like you could basically build, use their data and then run ads through their platform or directly with Reddit or Twitter. So it's we haven't tested it yet. Like I said, I'm in negotiations with them, but it looks really interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just for anyone else that wants to, potentially test it out. I'm like super curious. I'm probably going to be watching it for a bit because I'm just super curious now. That sounds great. So well, let's transition. I think that the other piece that I think is really, really critical, and I think a lot of people sometimes have a lot of, I think, challenges with, and that's just when to bring on an agency. You've brought in a lot of great information, really being able to not only, like you said, you've recovered and saved a lot of businesses, you helped scale a lot of businesses, whether it's through different traffic sources or tier one, really you've done it all in the agency space. But what we really want to talk about is I think a lot of people sometimes feel like they have an in-house team, or when do they hire an agency, or they only ever want to have one agency. So you kind of talked before that there's more value in agencies than say just running traffic for you, right? And there's a lot of different plays there. So this is really, I just want to kind of have you expand a little bit on the idea you talked about collaboration, or in general, like why sometimes there's more value in the agency than I think sometimes people think about it. They'll be like, I just need someone to run my traffic. There's more value in that. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit more and
Yeah.
expand on that.
It's interesting. We've evolved over the years from just being traffic to getting very involved in creative and building our own creative and production team. Creative 65% of of what makes advertising work most of the time. So creative is very important. But we're now at the point where we really think of ourselves as growth partners, not just an agent, a traffic agency, and we're really invested in our clients' success. And over the years, we know, some clients do decide to grow their in-house teams and take more things in-house, and other clients, divide and conquer. Like I said, maybe they do some stuff in-house and they use some agencies, and some people don't want to do anything in-house, so they just have a marketing director who manages a bunch of agencies. So there's lots of iterations, but and every agency does different things. Some just do traffic, some do traffic and creative, some do traffic, creative, and landing pages, and CRO, and so and some are special, like some are good at TikTok and some are good at YouTube and some are good at email. So it's not like just hire an agency. It's kind of like how do you fill your gaps? If you want to grow, do it, double down on what you do best, and and keep doing that. But if there's other things that you think are like, for example, I talked to a new CMO at a quite successful supplement company. I keep saying supplements because we do a lot of supplements, but they, this guy just come in and they basically concluded that they need more traffic partners. That was what his quote to me was like. We've decided that we need more traffic partners, even though we do lots of stuff in house and we have some other agencies. This one agency is really good at YouTube, and this agency is good at Facebook, and we're doing some stuff in house, but we really want to tackle native. So would you be willing to do Taboola and whatever else for us? And so that's a good example where they want more traffic partners. They're clear on their mission. They have a 90-day goal to get some more things tested and bring on some more good partners. And so that's how I see the big companies operate. Is they just sort of they pick and choose, and they find the specialists, the heart surgeons, the brain surgeons, and I don't think there's one agency that can do it all. So if you think that, then again, if you're small and your needs are not that big, maybe you could find an agency that could do most of what you need. But ultimately, when you grow, you're probably going to have multiple partners.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing we talked about too, I think is really key is oftentimes I think that there's this idea that agencies can't collaborate. There's competition. We were talking about before, my past experience with some agencies where trying to hire two agencies at once, and it became this huge awkward conflict, and we couldn't really get them on the same page. And so I think one thing you talked about is the collaboration side, and where how actually the way that agencies can work together can not only make them better, but your company better together. So to kind of expand and talk a little bit more about that, because I thought it was a really awesome thing that you were discussing.
Well, I have a couple thoughts on that. So,
Okay.
as far as collaboration, it's most, the real collaboration is the client. If they see you as an extension of their marketing team, and they're sharing all the information and the data with you, and you're working together and you're sharing information back and forth so that you're helping them on what they're focused on, and they're helping you with what you're focused on, you can win together. And it's really, it's really wonderful. And that's the kind of relationships we prefer. I have been in some situations like you're describing where they bring in another agency, but you're kind of like doing the same things. So you're both competing for like who's going to be the first person to recommend that new network. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, now they, it's like, and those relationships can be, can be challenging. So it's much better, like I said, when you divide and conquer. It's like, okay, they hire a TikTok agency and we're not focused on TikTok. So we are doing email, and like, you're not stepping on each other's toes. In those kind of situations where there's a clear line, it's very easy to work together. That's more about the client. Like if they're bringing on 3 TikTok agencies, it's going to be a problem, right? It's like, I don't know why they would, but but it's interesting though, because with affiliates, like a lot of affiliates buy advertising on the same channels. So many, big companies have multiple people buying on the same channels, and sort of competing with each other, and luckily for offer owners, it's the affiliates that are taking all the risks. So, it doesn't cost them anything to have multiple, people, but, and in most cases, like there's enough traffic out there that it's, you're not going to sabotage your campaigns by having multiple people. We call them side-by-side campaigns. So a lot of times, we'll talk to a client who's like, okay, we're, YouTube's working for us. And they're like, well, would you be open to side by side where we come up with different creative, different, a different approach, and maybe some different targeting, different audiences, and give it a shot. And in a lot of cases, like, yeah, no problem. The more the merrier. And, I remember back in the day talking about like old stories when I was one of the early advertisers on Google, in like 2002, whenever it first started, and back then they didn't have the restrictions they had on how many ad accounts you could have or how many competitive campaigns could be on a keyword. And so you could dominate the Google search term. There was a lot of situations where I had 8 of the 10 ads, were all, they were all me, even though they were variations or different websites, and so and you could just dominate that traffic. And because it was pay-per-click, it's like it wasn't like you were paying for all the space 8 times. It was, you just had 8 out of 10 chances of someone clicking on your ad. And I think that can be the case as well with affiliates, with multiple agencies and side-by-side campaigns, is that, if you want to dominate a market, the more that you space that you own, the less your competition has, and it can be a big win. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different way to kind of dominate a market. I like that because you're just taking, hey, this appeals to this customer, this appeals to this customer. Let's just keep building those out, so then you can just control it in different ways. So, Tom, do you have any thoughts too about kind of the affiliate relate or the agency relationship, or any questions for Drew around that?
I like the insight there because we experience like I guess the other side of the coin where offer owners come on and they want affiliates, but they don't want media buyer affiliates because that will compete with their ad spend. And how could I say this kindly? Usually they're not doing the kind of scale that would warrant wanting to gate other traffic. It's like, yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
curious if is there like a gut check for you where it like, yeah, you should gate that traffic or no, like let people play.
for us, it's it just all I care about is winning. And so, if a client gives us an opportunity and we win, it's a win. But attribution can get very tricky, and especially when you're big. The big, it gets much more difficult for the big companies where they're spending huge dollars everywhere, and it's like people are clicking on their ads, they're searching for them, they're clicking on a
Yeah.
native ad, they're getting it in their email, and it's like, is it last click attribution? Is it first click? Is it like who's responsible for the sale? Maybe we're going to attribute 20% to the native ad and 40% to the person who searched, they went and typed it in, and it's like, it's not a perfect science. Even the people who are doing that kind of stuff have not, at least in my experience, completely figured it out. So I think it's kind of almost like a fudge factor where it's like what your comfort level is. I think you're right that if you're small, there's it's very unlikely that a second campaign or other things are
Is
going
there is to kind of pin it to a wall a little bit, is there like a gut check revenue number on some of these bigger platforms like Facebook or Google
Like a
or YouTube where you're like an ad spend
like
level? Yeah.
yeah.
You're,
I don't have a number. I just think it's almost like a philosophy. Some companies are just like they're cool with anything, but they just more the
mhm.
merrier. And other companies are very protective, and we want to do it all in house, and we won't let anybody touch anything that we're touching. And it's usually one or the other. It's not. There's no like middle ground.
Yeah.
And so we're like, it's their business. It's their, they understand better than we do what they're comfortable with, and they'll see if things were working, and all of a sudden they let a bunch of people do side by side, and their ROI goes down. Well, then they should shut down, tell everybody to stop. But we take the directive from them. We don't try to tell them what they should do.
Gotcha.
But we're happy. We're happy to do side by side if they want to. And a lot of times, that's the other thing about media. Even when you have working campaigns, they're going to fatigue. Nothing lasts forever. And finding a replacement for that winning campaign is not always easy. It's not automatic. You have a winning campaign, and then all of a sudden you try a couple things and the new video doesn't work or whatever. It takes some iteration. So having some new ideas, some different partners, some fresh, angles often can find a win faster. And I always like, one of the things that I would say to our clients is that our goals are aligned. Yes, we charge fees that if you were buying direct, you wouldn't have to pay, but you're only spending money if the campaigns are working, right? So our goal is 100%. We don't make any money if we can't make your campaigns work and ROI. So if we're completely incentivized to make your campaigns work, including our fees, if that is happening, then you're happy to write us big checks, and it's a win-win. If we're not succeeding, you're going to cut the budget off very quickly, and you're not going to spend any money. You're not going to lose, and we're not going to make any money either. So we're both incentivized to make things work, and that's why I talk about the collaborations. It's like share creative, share what's working, help each other. We just all want to get to the win, and when you're aligned, it's much easier to do that.
Mm. That's right. One other, I'll do one thing before we kind of talk about, because I think one of the things, like honestly, if there's a lot of people that are saying, I hope there's companies out there going like, man, I would love to work with Drew. But before that, I think one thing that you said that was really impressive that we haven't a chance to address is 7 years. It was 7 years running, 8 years running of being in the fastest growing companies, Inc. 5000, which is amazing to have that consistent run. So I just actually want to give him like, if you could kind of boil that down in kind of a simple way, what do you think has been like the main reason you've been able to build and create a successful team that's been growing, but growing in that positive trajectory, especially in the agency business, which I feel like is way less common to see something like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can't take all the credit. Some of it might have been luck or timing or whatever. But the one thing that I do know for sure is that as soon as I started building a team, that's when we started growing. I'd been a one-man show for many years and sort of a lifestyle business, and it was great and was successful. But then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need some help. I'm going to bring on one person and then a second person, and then we had a 3-person team, and then a 5-person team, and then a 10-person. And every time I added bodies, talented team members, we grew a little more and grew a little more. And I didn't raise any money. I self-funded it. So we grew organically. Maybe I would have, and looking back, I would have, I wish I'd grown faster and hired sooner, because I think it would have grown more, if I'd done that instead of waiting, so long to start building a team. But so for me, that was like, you just can't, just like you can't be an expert at every channel, you can't do everything by yourself. There's just no way, that if you want to grow a company significantly, that you can't do it without help. And you may, I'm a little bit of a control freak, and so it was hard for me to let go and let other people, take things off my plate. But ultimately, there are people who are better than me at lots of individual things. Maybe they're not, they can't do all the things I do, in a bundle, but they're better than me at their individual expertise. And so hiring a bunch of those specialists, ultimately, you replace yourself, you bring in people who are better than you, and together, as a team, you have great success. So for me, that's if you're smaller and you're thinking about, how to grow, I think bringing a team together, and so that you can multiply your time, basically, for me, it was a great strategy.
That's awesome. No, it's funny. I was at a conference this the past couple of days, and Gabby Bernstein spoke at it. One of the things she said that keeps to Gabby, she's like, listen, like, it doesn't matter where you are, even if you're really small, find somebody that you could pay, whether it's a VA or some student, a couple hours a week to help you out with just a couple things. And that, but most importantly, it puts you in a mindset to know that you're willing to invest in yourself and start giving yourself that ability to say, I'm going to focus on what I want to do, and already start kind of delegating and hiring others to make you better, your team better, whatever it might be. I found that really impactful. Sometimes that you could get, like you said, get really stuck in like, I gotta have control over everything. But afford yourself the ability to say, hey, I'm worth somebody to help me out, so I could have more time, have more this, have more efficiency.
So that's a great segue into, you're right. I think initially, if you're small or you don't have you haven't raised money or whatever, it's easier to outsource instead of hire. Like, you don't want to take on that overhead and have that that responsibility. So it's easy to hire an intern, outsource the creative, outsource the media buying, whatever. And then as you're more successful, you can start building a team. That's obviously what I did. So, and even I'll give you an example on the creative side of things. So I've got a copywriting background. So when my clients needed help, I'm like, all right, I'll write some ads for you. I'll, in the beginning, it was like me, one man show, writing some stuff, designing some banners. Then eventually it was like, okay, I'm not the world's best banner designer, and I don't have the bandwidth. So I outsourced it to a company that just did banners, and so when I needed banners for my clients, I was outsourcing to them. And, and then even when I hired a team, then we started outsourcing some things on like Fiverr and Upwork and whatever initially. But it was a pain. Every time you needed something new, you had to put in a ticket and put in a thing and find the right person and wait for it to come. It was like slow and cumbersome. And so we're like, it'd be so much faster if we just had someone in-house. So we hired one designer, and then a second, and then a video editor, and then an animator, and the copywriter. And it was like, eventually, we had it all in house, and it was, it took us some time to get there. But it was, we were much more successful, much more efficient when we're creating 1,000 banners a day, in house than, putting in a request for 20 banners on, every time we need one on some third-party site or something, or to a vendor. So I think you can absolutely start with outsourced vendors. And then, similarly, like I said, divide and conquer. You can, if you've got great partners, keep some of them, work with agencies, work with outsourced partners where you don't have the overhead, the risk. But, where strategically it makes sense, you start adding bodies internally and bringing that expertise in-house as well. So it's kind of a combination, I feel like, that you can win in both ways, and you don't have to, go from zero to hiring 10 people,
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. I love that. It's that transitionary period. I think the big thing is it's so great to let ourselves grow through that expansion, right? Like, take some off your plate and put yourself in those strength centers. I think that's really powerful. So, Thomas, anything else to add to that, or any other questions? Because then next I want to kind of talk about who are the kind of clients you want to work with, or what's the kind of person, what's the business, who they should be. But before that, Thomas, if you have any other questions or thoughts for Drew.
Just music to my ears. We preach that all the time with clients that are, hair's on fire, scale is happening. It's like, or they've just hit plateaus, and it's like the scales kind of stopped. Like they've not doing poorly, but they're just kind of stagnant now with growth. And it's like, hey, yeah, if you're reaching that plateau and you're not really sure why, it's probably a process operational thing, which means a team thing, which means people, which means hiring and kind of figuring out that piece of your entrepreneurial journey and getting out of the solopreneur into more of a owner, CEO, right? How do you actually start to diversify your skill set that way? So what got you to one point is probably not what's going to get you to the next point in a lot of cases there.
Yeah, and I think also I'm going to be very curious to see, but I think a lot of companies are top heavy. The pandemic, things went flying, and
Yeah.
companies like Peloton and whatever overhired, and then all of a sudden when things got normalized, we've got too many employees. Like, so you have to be careful how aggressive you
Hmm.
are with hiring, and when you outsource it, it's like you can turn it on, turn it off, and it's I think a little easier. So I'm interested to see right now if more companies actually start going back to agencies, even more because they don't want to do it in house, or they don't have the capital or the risk tolerance. So
I think that is true. I think even leading up to this year, I've had more friends needing to do layoffs and different kind of restructuring in their companies than they were in the 5 years previous kind of thing. And it's just, yeah, they just got a little too much fat on their company. It's like, oh shoot, we overhired, didn't realize it. And now we've got to really trim the fat and kind of get just those key players that we need in place. And then they can outsource the rest, kind of operate more lean.
Man, I feel like it's targeted towards me, Thomas, and a lot of losing weight focuses here. Trimming the fat, cutting the bloat season. Come
I've
on,
been in a
man.
calorie deficit for like 6 months. So I'm a little, I'm just hungry, honestly. Okay.
Dude, that's amazing. So, well, going back to that other question, Drew, is just the beginning. So, honestly, I just want to pause and say this was amazing. Like, I really loved the conversation. We covered some new networks, we covered strategies. There's just so many great things that hopefully I think the audience. I think will find immensely valuable. Any media buyers, any business owners, you can listen to this episode. I guarantee you that you're going to pull at least one nugget out that could be really, really impactful. Especially even the networks that we covered. One of those could unlock something really exciting for you. But that being said, I think a lot of people are probably like, hey, I want to know how to work with Drew. Am I right? What's the right fit? So not saying you're always looking for tons of new clients. I know you have a pretty big book, but it's a fast growing company, right? So what is the right client? What are you really looking for? And for someone to approach and talk to you, not only how do they do it, but what would you want them to be prepared with before that conversation started?
yeah, I mean, we are definitely a boutique agency, and we are not looking for 100 new clients. We're really picky and selective about who we work with. I'd much rather have fewer relationships that are long term than churn through lots of new things, new clients. We focus primarily on health and wealth. So if you've got financial offers or health offers, that's a great fit. If you're looking for additional scale and diversification, like I said, you know some like if you're a startup, it's probably not a fit. It's probably too early for us to get involved. But if you've got something that you're ready to scale, or you want additional scale, or you need to, you want to de-risk the business a little bit, we could be a great partner, and we're happy to, explore. And take a look. I would always take a phone call or have a conversation with people and be honest with them if it's not time yet, and I'm like, hey, it's a little premature, but just call us in 6 months or a year when you're ready. Great. We're looking for clients that are want to scale to $100,000 a month or more in ad spend, and we or $1 million a month. But if you're looking to spend $5,000 a month, probably a little premature for us. So. Yeah. And like I said, it's not about spend. You don't have to spend $100,000 on day one. You just have to have the desire to scale and the ability. And if the campaigns are successful, we can scale very quickly and diversify into multiple channels. And that's what we're looking for. It's just the right partners that want to grow long term. The other thing I would say is we really like evergreen offers. So a company that's like, they're going to advertise all year round. They're going to be their client for 10 years. Not like someone with one offer that's going to be hot for 6 months and gone, and they don't have anything behind it. That's not really a business. That's an offer, per se. So, I like companies that have multiple offers, multiple products, multiple, or just sort of markets where they've got, we do a lot of lead gen as well. So they've got a phone room with 50 guys in it and they need leads 24/7, 365. They're always going to need leads. It's not like the offer is going to fatigue. They just need a partner who's going to help them keep the phone ringing. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great. Well, and for those who want to reach out to you, they just go to rainmakeradventures.com, or what's the place to reach you?
rainmakeradventures.com, Drew at rainmakeradventures.com, anywhere on social media, Drew Kossoff. I'm happy to field inquiries, and I'm really like like I said, I'm happy to help people, even if it's not a fit, point you in the right direction, give you some free advice. It's not like we're on a high horse and only big spenders can talk to me. I love meeting people, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And last thing I want to do before I let you go, really appreciate your time. I just want to do another plug for everybody, just because I think when we started this episode, where we covered a lot of stuff, one of the things I love the most about it was we started through a give, right? This conscientious entrepreneur giving back to communities. So I actually got the official name for the one that I mentioned. It's right over here. It's Family Advocates. So you go to familyadvocates.org for any of the listeners out here that thought, hey, that sounded really interesting. And I wanted one more time, Drew, if you could mention the charity that you're staff member with for the foster kids that you were buying the laptops for, because I think that is so amazing. And I really, really love that charity too. Yeah. And I want anyone that's listening, if they were inspired, to be able to go contribute as well. So what was the name of that one again? Is like One Wish, or
it's called One Simple Wish? Yeah. And and the cool thing is you can read the stories of each kid, so you can actually pick the actual kid you're going to fulfill a wish for, and what that wish is. So if you decide laptops are your thing, like I have, you can look and say, oh, there's 24 kids looking for laptops. Let me read each of their stories. And not only can you send them a gift, fulfill a wish for them, but you can write them a little note with it saying like, hey, I saw that you needed this to go to college, and I wanted to just, encourage you to, and wish you success in your journey, and then they can actually write you back. They don't all do it, but you can actually get a letter like, thank you so much. It's going to change my life. And to me, that just feels so much better than just, writing a check to somebody and never hearing from them. So I just appreciate that. But I'm going to, what did you say yours is called? Family Advocate?
Yeah, Family Advocates.
We're going to make a donation to Family Advocate this month or next month, whatever, and I'll go look at the timing of it. But happy to support your charity, and thanks for suggesting it.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. That means a lot, man. So, well, great. I'm in all the warm fuzzies today, so that's an awesome thing. Thomas, anything else that might be as impactful as, do you want to donate to charity?
I'll make a donation as well. But no, this has been fantastic. Thank you, Drew. I really appreciate your time coming on.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.
Having me.
Well, perfect. Well, everyone, please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things, and always email us too. And again, I think another thing as well, follow Drew for great feedback and see what other great charities he's giving to. And hey, if you ever have some suggestions too, send them those to him. We want to make sure we're putting good things out in the world and helping people, especially as we enter the holiday season. So with that, until next time, I hope that you are all safe, happy, and making money out there. And what do we tell the people, Thomas?
Happy scaling.
Woo, all right. Have a good one, everyone.
I love that.